It's not. Live. Okay. All right. Hello there, people of the internet. My name is Odur Jagero, and this is Political Headache. At Political Headache, we always go deep. So, this is a question. Picture a room, 500 people. No rules, no titles, no budgets, just 500 strangers locked in a warehouse with a single urgent problem to solve. Mr. Odhiambo Otieno. At first, there is noise. Everyone talks at once, everyone has an opinion, ideas clash, arguments break out, the noise becomes a wall. It is the sound of total equality, and it is the sound of paralysis. Nothing moves, nothing gets done, but give it an hour, give it a day, inevitably, mathematically, one voice will cut through the static. One person will stand on a chair, one person will outline a plan. And here is the most terrifying part of that experiment. The other 499 people won't pull them down. They won't fight for their own turn on the chair. They will sigh with relief and they will follow. We love to tell ourselves a story about politics. We say that the elites steal power. We say the 1% take control of the masses. But history, biology, and psychology tell a different story, a darker story. They suggest, Mr. Odhiambo, and people of the internet, the person that we are going to discuss this with is Mr. Odhiambo. They suggest that we don't lose our freedom. We always surrender it. They suggest that the autonomy is so metabolically expensive, so psychologically heavy, that the human brain naturally seeks a master. Why does every revolution, no matter how democratic, end with a new king? Why does the organization of 10,000 always end up in the hands of 3? Is it conspiracy, or is it law of nature, from the dominance hierarchies of lobsters to the iron law of oligarchy? Today, we are driving into the psychology of the few and the submission of the many. Today, we are going philosophical. We are going to tell you why you are led by the very few. We are talking about Ruto. We are talking about Orengo. We are talking about Kalonzo Musyoka. We are talking about Rigathi Gachagua. In the entire country of Kenya, there is no one who understands the psychology of leadership like Odhiambo Otieno. He is the political genius who serves political mushroom soup. You can go psychedelic today in the evening, or you can learn. Welcome to Political Headache, the only platform that scratches the surface but does not end there. We dive deeper. Hello, Mr. Odhiambo Otieno.
Hello, how are you?
How are you doing?
Amazing, 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 amazing.
Mr. Miguna is not happy with you because, Munga, are we okay with sound? A little bit static. But we okay.
All right.
Everything is right. You need to figure it out. You need to figure it out because it is going to be smoking hot. You know, sometimes I feel like I should have that Jeff whatever.
That thing.
Yeah. So anyway,
you're saying Mr. Miguna is not.
Mr. Miguna said that he was very sad about some of the things that you said.
Yeah.
I don't know what they are that you said, but I think that it's gonna be alright. You'll one day be with him, and everything is gonna be alright.
I'm looking forward to having a discussion with him.
Yeah.
Of course, he's somebody that I do respect for the cadence that he holds.
Yeah.
And I do admire the forthrightness that he has. And of course, I could have made a mistake here and there in my speech. I'm not a perfect human being.
Yeah.
And where I fall short, of course, I'll always ask for forgiveness. Kindly, Mr. Miguna, pardon me.
Hey.
I may have fallen short of the glory.
Yeah.
And so I learn. I believe you'll help me to access him and have a discussion.
I just seen your message asking for his. I hadn't seen it till now.
Yeah, I hadn't
seen it. So anyway,
good.
When we discussed this subject with you,
yes,
what was going on in your head?
Let me tell you. One of the things that I've always desired us to talk about is why politics.
Yeah.
Why do people look forward to a leader? Why do we want to be led? And for what reason do we want to be led? Why are we seemingly donating our power? Because we've just been discussing politics for now a year.
Yeah.
And I believe it's time for people to understand why do we discuss this politics. And so when you ask me this question, I knew so well that this is going to be very nicely academic, but also natural. So I want to compress the academia into very simple, explainable concepts that the common man will understand.
Yes.
So politics operates interestingly.
Okay.
And it comes from somewhere. That, as you've read, politics is biology, it's psychology. Politics is also just social, psychological, as you said it. So I don't know where you want us to start, because it's very wide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The place I want us to start is what makes a politician. For example, when I was growing by the shores of River Nyando, our grandfather had a radio, a brown radio that is made of wood, called Nation. We used to call it Nation. Okay? And every now and again, my father used to tell stories, especially when he's tipsy. When he's taken a little bit of changa and he's spitting all over the place, he will tell me stories of Jaramogi Oginga Odinga. I remember vividly the story that my father told me that I have never understood where he got that story from. He told me about the mythical nature of Oginga Odinga. And he said that he was a man that could turn into wind. He was a man that could turn into a fly. And one of the things that he told me that was very interesting, that when Moi or Kenyatta was having a meeting in State House, that Jaramogi Oginga Odinga will go close to State House and then turn himself into a fly and then perch on Moi's shoulders. And thereafter, he will be the silent listener to every conversation in State House, the unseen guest at State House. And so when those stories are told, and then they talk about Raila, Agwambu Nyalego, and they sort of give him that idea. When they talk about Ojwang Kombodo, Ojwang Kombodo is the man that came to parliament, took out his shoes and smashed the table where Moi was. That was Ojwang Kombodo. Then you go back to somebody like Akumu Jakogiro Chotobert, the man that came to Nyakach on the invitation of Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, decided to be an MP, did not leave his job, took off and stayed in Ghana throughout his term.
Akumu Jakogiro?
Yes, Akumu Jakogiro Chotobert came with money and told me, don't follow me after elections.
Yes.
That is how he
politics sits at self-actualization. Okay? So many human beings would naturally desire that their value system, their highest good, is achieved within a particular set of people. That's why, for example, you'll find, if you look at elections, time over time and differently. Let me give you America, for example. You'll understand this very well. There are two main parties in America, which represent the ideology of America, which is the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. The same happens also to UK. The same happens to all many other countries which have long-standing parties. It happens like this. They are the conservatives. Like in America, the Republicans are the conservatives. They are the people who will protect the basic identity and basic value system of the community or of the society. Then we have the liberals. These ones are always coming with a bit of democracy. They're accepting of change. They're accepting of, you know. So you'll find it's a dance between liberals and conservatives to maintain a balance, because human beings love a balance. Now, you could see, for example, in America, we have the Republicans who are always taking America to war majorly. They always, if you look at any major war in America, or any major war that America fights, it has always been led by a Republican president. But if you look at any regime change, and most regime changes, they've been effected by Democratic presidents, or Democrat presidents. If you look at policy shift in America, the most progressive policies that are nearing what I call socialism. In socialism, I'm referring to the government determining what can be done and even the business that can be run in a country, and collecting taxes and helping the society equally. For example, the government takes charge of things like transportation,
Ujamaa.
health, you'll call it Ujamaa. I call it social democracy. Okay? Where the government allows...
Okay.
Yeah.
So I was talking with Miguna yesterday, and I was wondering that Kenya does not have public transportation, and by public transportation, the Nyayo bus service is dead. The transportation of railway is not in the hands of the government, and so on and so forth.
Yes.
So you call it socialism.
Socialism, yes.
So socialism essentially is different from capitalism.
Exactly. So let me describe for you something here.
Okay. Are we okay?
The world is run on ideologies. The world is not run on some other things that people may want to think of them. Ideologies here are what determine something called the market. Okay? At the end of the day, what people are looking for is a market and order, and basically peace. Okay? Or let me just say order. Many people don't look at peace, really. They look at order. Yeah. So if you look at the definitions of establishments of countries, the political establishment of countries, they go back down to these defined ideologies. And they're defined by various people. Some said socialism, some said communism, some said capitalism. And they're pursuing those things for the purposes of the market and maintaining a value system and order in a community. Okay. So let me explain. Excuse me. When you talk about capitalism, capitalism is where the government does not interfere with businesses. It can only regulate businesses, but it allows private people to own businesses. Capitalism. Private people own businesses, they set price, they collect profit, they keep most of the profit and give employees a little money. The government does not really interfere, but it can participate to do what? To regulate, to maintain sanity. Yes. That is why, in the Kenyan context, Kenya is basically, on the base, it's a capitalist state. Yeah. But it has adopted a hybrid of capital social market or capital socialist market. I'll tell you how. So in a socialist state, or in a socialist definition, is where the government runs the country. People basically own nothing. Okay? But even if you're allowed to own a business, the government sets the price. Okay. You don't set the price. The government sets the price. And even tells you what to sell. So and collects from you. So if, for example, you're Uhuru Kenyatta and you have got Brookside, yes, then we say, no, it can't be 70 bob. You'll have to sell it at 35 shillings. Exactly. And that is the price. And then the government uses the proceeds to give equal services to people. Like, for example, you'll find things like common public transport, social housing, whatever, farms, access to food. You'll find there's that bit of socialism, that everybody has access to something. Then you have communism. In communism, the government owns and does everything. In fact, 9 out of 10 people in a communist state work for the government. Because the government owns everything. The government gives you a house. The government pays you.
I thought China was a communist country, but there is a lot of capitalism going there. They are making all this stuff that they're selling to us in Africa.
So I want you to understand that how do these countries operate? Now that brings us to now the question that you're asking. For example, China is internally communist, but externally capitalist. Okay? Internally communist in that the people are not allowed a voice.
Okay.
The decisions are made at oligarchy level. What you call the law of the iron, yeah? There's a few people who decide how to run the country. I don't know if you've read Marxism.
A little bit.
By Karl Marx.
Boring.
Not boring, it's very intriguing. It could be boring if you don't want to understand if you don't want to understand the concept of the world.
Probably I disagree with it.
Probably disagree with it because how would you identify? Do you identify as a capitalist, socialist, or communist?
I identify as, because of the innate laziness of human beings.
Yes.
Who wants to sit under a tree and wait for manna to fall from heaven.
Yes.
I really love the idea of capitalism.
You really love the idea of capitalism.
But also, my problem with capitalism is that the greed can outweigh the goodness.
Yes.
In a sense that you are in a place whereby you really can't afford anything.
So now let me tell you, that is why, and I agree with Miguna what he said yesterday. I am part of the people who are advocating for something called conscious capitalism.
Okay.
Because what you're having in Kenya and in many other capitalist states is unconscious capitalism.
Do you mean moral capitalism?
Moral capitalism. It's not called conscious capitalism because, okay, in terms of moral capitalism, where is the bar? Who sets the moral? It's quite difficult to understand, to be a moral police. But in terms of conscious capitalism, you are inviting the conscience of the person that, hey, we can agree that what is sensible to charge. And that's why most governments will tell you that if you're doing a business, let your profit be between 10 to 30% of the cost of doing business. If it goes beyond that, you are becoming disorderly. In fact, you're becoming unconscious because you're going to create war. If you take too much resources to yourself, you will create unconscious capitalism.
But that is interesting, and I think the government cannot be able to follow up that. I will give you an example.
Yes.
We use sand, majorly in Nyakach, to build, and many other places. And we have River again, which has got lots of sand. And then we have Kaputhe, where we also have a lot of sand that they harvest from farms. Now, these guys actually buy sand for about 1,500 and sell it for 8,000. Ragain to my place is just about 2 kilometers. So they are making a profit of about 6,000 in a space of 2 kilometers. But then the government is not able to know how much they are paying down there. And so when you tell them this law, they're like, okay, you don't even know what I'm buying for. So that is the problem that I see with that.
And that's why we have regulators in capitalist states. That's why the government should create enabling environment for businesses in capitalist states. So that, and how do you create enabling environments? You have regulatory authorities, like for example, let me give you a quick one. In terms of media, we have the Communications Authority of Kenya that controls not only the frequency, but also controls the it's sort of a moral police that controls the ethics. It sets the standards, but it donates its authority to the Media Council of Kenya. It grants it something called semi-autonomy for it to be able to set social responsibility, where the media censors itself, okay? But it's supervised by Communications Authority of Kenya. That in any case, MCK is unable to rein into the media, then CAK can only switch them off.
Yeah.
They hold the last power. If you go to pharmacy, for example, in the pharmacy business, we have the poisons, Pharmacy and Poisons Board.
Yeah.
What does it do? It even sets the prices. It gives the licenses.
Sets the prices for pharmaceutical products?
Yes. For example, do you know that you should not sell a pharmaceutical product more than times 1.33 of the original cost?
But I thought those are the people that have got a lot of money. They sell for 200% of the price.
It shouldn't be. And do you know, let me tell you today, Do you know that if you have a pharmacy and a patient comes to you and the patient is not able to afford your profit, it is required by the Pharmacy and Poisons Board that you sell that drug to that person or that patient at cost. What does at cost mean? Pharmacy and Poisons Board says, hey, it's capitalism, yes, but if the patient has the money that you bought this medicine with at cost, like ile pesa kuwaro, then you have to sell to this patient at cost. And a patient can take you, can report you for not selling to them at cost. But the masses are not aware.
As a patient, I don't know the cost.
Exactly, you don't know the cost. So that is what is expected, the conscience that is expected of the pharmacists. That is why
Is this the reason why every time I ask a pharmacist for a discount, they will always give it?
They will always give you a discount. Every day. In fact, they always have very many alternatives that will go even below the price, the amount of money you have. They're required to sell at what? At cost. That is Pharmacy and Poisons Board. But you should not take advantage of it.
So assuming that you know that you are a pharmacist,
yes,
and you go to Mombasa for a conference, you start diarrheaing, and you go to a pharmacy and you tell them that I want you to sell me this drug at this much.
No, you don't tell them I want to sell for me the drug at this much. Already you know the cost. If you know the cost, yeah?
Yeah.
Let's say they bought it at wholesale for 100 shillings per sachet or per tablet. And you have 100 shillings. If you give them 100 shillings, they will be able to sell it to you. That is if you don't have that money. But many people don't know because many people don't read. So they won't know. Now, it applies to very many. We have Kenya, whatever for doctors, that regulates doctors. We have the Law Society of Kenya, which has been given semi-autonomy. Yeah? And there's the Judicial Service Commission up there that regulates the behavior of judges, you know,
yes,
and the legal fraternity. Your license can be withdrawn. So the capitalist market operates on licenses and authorities, so they can withdraw your license of practice, they can close your company, they can take you to judiciary for a fair trial or for a fair hearing. Okay? So that is capitalism explained. Then now you will understand that it is not just about purchase. It's also about how do we stabilize order, because politics is for order. People donate their authority to self-regulate to politicians. That is why they want a government, so that they can focus on the private. They give it to the public. Are we together? The public is what now you refer to as public officer. Are we together? An MP is a public
officer.
He's not a state officer. Okay? State officers are those who are heading state offices. Like, for example, the head of the military is a state officer. The president is a state officer. The attorney general is a state officer. Those ones, they are in the state. Okay? Now, people also love politics because they are, I told you that there's the bad part of us, which we don't like, but we would want it to happen. And I was explaining for you back then how America plays between these two parties. And allow me to finish that trail of thought. That if you look at America, the Democrats, majorly, they always allow for progression. The Republicans, they hold on the conservative values. Go to Britain today. Go to Europe generally today. And even the people who are watching us know this. There is an emergence of a strong right wing. So I want to explain for you how then even in capitalism, communism, socialism, no, not communism, socialism and capitalism, especially capitalism, we have the emergence of three major points of power. We have something called the center, we have something called the left, we have something called the right. Now, the left are people who normally love governance institutions as they are. They want to build institutions. They institutionalize order. They're called the lefts of any formation of a political party. Then we have the right. The right does not like order. They don't like institutionalization of stuff. Majorly when they get into offices, they become autocrats.
So people that are the people in America that are supporting Trump,
Yes.
What are they called? The MAGA.
So in Republican, MAGA is right. Those are right politicians, right-wing politicians. Now, right-wing politicians and right-wing supporters are those people who survive on the right bits of the society, which is we can destroy institutions. You saw the insurrection where they went to
Capitol Hill
and went in and said, this thing is not working. Let's bring it down. That is right-wing politics.
So essentially, I want us to understand,
Yes.
I want the people to understand exactly what right-wing politics is.
Yes.
Because, for example, across Europe right now,
Yes.
there is a serious right-wing movement.
Yes.
And this right-wing movement, there are things that they don't like. They are feeling that there is too much immigration.
Exactly.
Okay? That with this immigration comes the loss of opportunities to the people that are, for example, Germans by birth. Most of the people also, the white supremacists also do not like the fact that their blood is being mixed.
Exactly.
Because these blacks are coming with long dicks and
Come on. You wanna. All right.
messing with their blood.
Yes.
You understand?
Right.
There is also jobs
Yes.
that they are taking, and so on and so forth. So what exactly is right-wing about that? So the definition of right-wing, are they patriots? Who are they?
Okay. I will explain for you this in terms of understanding the basic two wings of politics. We have right-wingers and we have left-wingers. Then we have centrists. But let me explain the right and the left. So right-wingers are normally the conservatives within. Left-wingers are normally the progressives, the liberals within. Centrists are always playing either central left or central right, which means they ask for sobriety.
Are they sitting on the fence?
Exactly. They are fence sitters who sway between left and right. So
if I get you correct,
Yes.
it means
Yes.
that if we are going to allow gay people to get married in church,
yes,
let's just allow them to get married, but let's not shout about it.
Exactly.
Let's not bake it into law.
exactly. So that's a center left.
So they are not right.
No, that's center left because they are allowing progression,
Yeah.
but they say that progression is towards the left.
Okay.
Now, center right will be like this. Let those gay people be there, okay? But nobody will recognize them. Nobody wants to interfere with them, but nobody will recognize them. That's center right. Yes, it's our, but ni ndio lakini hapana. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
They'll be like, okay, we can have a talk about it, but no. But let them exist, but no. Okay? Now, the right wing, like what you're saying, there's something that's happening now in Europe, the larger Europe. It's called the Great Replacement Theory in action, where the larger Europe and the indigenous Europeans are feeling like there is something that is happening because their generation, their population is aging very fast. Right now, if you look at Germany, if you look at even Japan, actually, Italy, etc., the birth rate has reduced significantly. The workforce has reduced significantly. And German, in the recent, I think 2 years or something, they did introduce something nice of bringing in workers from, immigrants from other countries to come in. If you look at Germany, for example, there's that emergence of, I think it's called AfD or FD, something, that very strong right-wing party that is saying no to migration. These people should go back to their countries because they're preserving the dignity of, or the identity, the original identity of the people and the society. And they're saying no to institutionalization of immigration. There's nothing like that. In fact, these guys, you need to go. You look at Trump now in America, what's happening there?
He's seriously right.
ICE
He's bombing houses.
is bombing houses, and now they've received the highest budget in 2026, 2027. That it is being said that up to 15 million people will be gotten out of America. And you know, there are those illegal the illegal immigrants who don't have any papers. There are those ones who have a temporary...
When you walienda for conferencing, but never came back. Siniao.
Well, it's tired. It's tiered, let me put it as such. So there are those ones who went there illegally. Like those ones who cross over from Mexico na kuja kufanya kazi ya shamba.
Yeah.
Na wanakataa kurudi wanaishi. They didn't come in with any paper. Wali cross border kichorochoro wakaingia. Okay? Then kuna wale ambao walikuja Now, through that one, but they were born there. Do you get it?
Yes.
They were born by illegal
Immigrants.
So they don't have status.
They are not citizens by birth.
They are citizens by birth. That is true because they were born in America. But they don't have status because how do you naturalize them? How do you legalize them? Their origin is not there. Okay? Then
But
we have
I find that a little. I mean, this is a bit of going off the topic.
yes.
But I find it a bit strange
Yes.
that how can you tell me that I'm not American and my mother carried me for 9 months in this country, and then I was born in this.
And that is the controversy that Americans are dealing with. That hey, how are you separating them? Because Trump is saying, okay, let the parents go, let the child remain.
Oh, that's what he's saying.
And in fact, at one time, he wanted all of them to go. But people are saying, okay, let the children remain because they're American citizens and they can contest in court, of course. I was born here. I don't know what was happening. I was in my father's long trouser when I came here. Okay? And many other tires. So if you look at Germany, Europe, and especially UK today, you find the emergence of the Reform Party. Reform UK, headed by somebody called Nigel Farage.
Farage. He does not like Africans. He does not like anything black. He's a hater.
Well, you could say that. I doubt if he's a hater. I believe what he's doing is basically a right-winger. He wants preservation of Britain as its original identity because right now they're saying Muslims are taking over. And the same fear is in America. Muslims are taking over. You can even say it in Kenya. You can see it. They're taking over. That is the truth. They're all over. They're taking over. Okay? They're in the economy. They're having very big populations because they allow 4 wives, and each wife has 3-4 children. So one man has how many children? 12. So the population is multiplying faster than the rest. And they're taking over. And they're very well organized. And the first emergence of
But you and your wife are not Somalis.
Yes.
You and your wife are not Kenyan. So what is your problem? If somebody else is living in West London as a Somali and you're living in East London as a Somali, what is your problem?
The problem is, it goes back down to blood. You know, to understand.
Yeah.
What you've said is very right. That they're looking at something called the mating game. Because the mating identity is very huge. This thing we talk about racism, Jagero. It is not a joke. Racism is a serious stuff. And racism is very superficial, of course. You and I know that. That's only the skin color. But it becomes skin deep when you look at it from the mating game, where you can hear, for example,
When Luos are not happy with Akimani taking Dr. Zippy.
oh, okay. I didn't see that coming. Yes, so something like that. Something like that.
So something like
Something like that. So you see,
that.
Britain or Europe at large, they're saying this mixing of gene is not right. Why? Because we have an irreconciled history, but also we have a fundamental difference which is recognizable, which is how we look. We are likely to help each other because remember, politics is also identity. It is us transferring our collective success to a person, us transferring our collective inadequacies to a person. We are projecting our inadequacies to a person. That's why you'll find America voting Trump in the last election. You will find they were majorly the white nationalists who elected Trump. What are they projecting? It cannot be that immediately after a very liberal election that brought Obama to power, a black man, the first one of his kind to become a president, is replaced by somebody who is the exact opposite of what America was looking like it was going to. It shows you that quite a number of the population were disgruntled. They were feeling like their identity is being eroded, and they were like, let's take our identity back. And that's why Trump came with the word, make America great again. It was not about making America great again. It was about preserving our identity as America. What the hell are we doing? We're defiling America. Do you understand?
We are defiling America.
We are defiling America. The same is happening to UK. And they're saying, what? Here it is mating issue, because for them it's population. America is about pride. Europe is about children. Because blacks, when they go there, what do they say? You hear them say, when you go black, you don't go back. Do you think white men are happy hearing somebody say, when you go black, you never go back? And even the girls are celebrating. There's something.
And it's also very interesting that once a black and a white come together, it's black.
It's black.
Why is it never white?
Because it never goes back. I don't know what it means. Yeah, so you see such stuff make you see politics very differently. That it goes back to biology. Guys want to preserve their bloodline. Men want to preserve their bloodline. And if they have a child, they want that child to look like them. And if they're living in the larger community, they will wonder, why is that child not looking like us? Remember Jagero. If you go even back to the Bible, yeah? It's the time that Herod was killing every child, every young boy, because it was posing a threat to his leadership, which tangu mtoto azaliwe mpaka afike umri wa Herod, he would have died. But he was doing it out of identity question. And the same applies to this issue of immigration, etc. So politics applies on those fronts.
Sisi kama Mount Kenya.
Yes, sisi kama Mount Kenya.
Sisi kama Wajaluo.
Exactly. Because we set our values and our achievements on a particular order. Because resources are not private. Resources are public. There's no private resource. Every resource under the sun is public. We found it here. So we must organize on how to take it. And because we live so many people together, we must agree that how are we going to approach the sharing of this resource. So we want to have some level of law because we are chaotic by nature, because we are self-preserving by nature. We want to have an agreement, a social contract, okay, that we will donate our power to decide to a particular person that is elected or that is reached upon by this agreement. For example, initially, the feudalism, because I want you to understand politics very well. And for you to understand politics, you have to go back, even from the Bible. If you want to follow the Bible, it was judges first. Because remember, the world originally was not ruled by politicians. It was ruled by religious leaders. Okay?
I remember the kings, King Leopold, even
these are monarchs. Before monarchs, there were religious regimes.
How about Africa?
Even Africa, there were religious regimes. The people who were leading those communities were not just chiefs, they were also the religious supreme leaders. In fact, look at countries such as Iran or the Islamic states. They are still led by Islamic, I don't know what they're called, sheikhs, those big guys like Khamenei in Iran, etc. Okay? So in the original order of things, in Africa, we, and also in the world, we had people who were leading us, but these guys were religious heads. If you look at the establishment of Rome, you remember Rome, you heard of the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire, how was it working? It was working in that we had Caesar. Who was Caesar? He was also the head of the Roman Church. You would have to pass through him to achieve certain things. And he would go and attack very many other areas in the name of Rome. And Rome was known for Catholicism. And remember, there's a time that Catholicism used to rule. That's why we have bishops. These bishops you see, they were Catholics' idea of having the Pope's representative across the world as not only his ambassadors, but also his rulers. Because the Pope will then represent the Vatican authority, but also the religious authority. If you go to UK today, again, and Great Britain, you'll find that the King, King Charles, is also the head of the Church of England.
Church of England, yes.
Okay? Queen Elizabeth was also the head of the Church of England.
Which is basically Anglican.
Exactly. So in Britain or in monarchies, the subjects donated their power to the sovereign. So in Britain, the sovereign is not the common man in the street. The sovereign is the king. In Kenya, the sovereign is not the president. The sovereign is the common man in the street because it's a republic where decisions have been given to people. Everybody has an equal right by way of vote to go and participate in an election and then achieve representation, which will in turn give them what? Equal representation at the decision-making table. And that's why if you don't represent them well, they're allowed through the social contract to change it. But that is also changing. Because we can discuss, is the social contract as was set then still viable in the age of social media? Because then you'd vote, as you're saying, that fellow from Nyakach, what's his name? Chuthber.
Chuthber, akumuja kugero.
Yes, he said, I give you, you give me, you don't ask me.
Yes.
That's how social contract is supposed to be, ideally. That once you give somebody the power to rule, you wait until another election. But in the age of social media, you're finding the social contract changing. That people are not now just following, the people are engaging. And in that form of engagement, then the Politburo must now shift their thinking and recognize that you cannot just use the gavel. You know the gavel?
The gavel?
Yeah.
What's a gavel, though? It's an agricultural tool.
No.
A gavel?
Yeah.
A sickle?
No. A gavel is that nyundo that you see the judges in judiciary using.
The court hammer.
It's called a gavel. The court hammer. So that gavel was given to specific people. It was a sign of authority that once that gavel is hit, the decision has been reached. Just like in auctioneering, we have at the fall of the hammer, the product shall have been sold. So it was a sign that that gavel was given to a few people, which means the authority was given to a few people then in the social contract as was. Now it is shifting, and maybe it's something that people can study in political science. I'm not a political science student, on how the social contract is shifting in the age of social media. Because the people are going to the streets. Revolutions are happening from social media. They're ending in the street. You see every country when they're going for election, they're switching off internet, especially in East Africa. Uganda did it. Tanzania did it. Yeah, Kenya, not yet. But Kenya tried.
I don't think Kenya
to switch off TVs.
They can switch off TV, but
Yes.
I don't think Kenya is the only country,
Yes.
probably in Africa, that cannot switch off internet. I think
No,
Kenya,
it can.
It cannot.
It can. Because when, let me tell you, when it goes to, when we are facing a national security issue, these old people who sit at the National Security Council, most of them do not know how to engage. Perhaps for me, the person who I'm seeing engaging for the first time is President Ruto, who ran away from social media. President Ruto's, in the heat of the moment, weathered the storm and went to Twitter and talked to I don't know how many, and they abused him. You heard that. They abused him. They abused him. In fact, I don't know how he felt. But he recognized that these guys, you have to do what? You have to engage them. And so, that change, that shift, gives us a new way of looking at politicians and looking at politics generally. Yes.
Okay, so let's look at a politician. How come only the few decide to be politician? Because if you look at even the NCA, not many people. I have toyed with the idea of running as an MP of Nyakach.
Yes.
But every time you look at the magnitude of what you want to do.
Yes, and you run away.
This is not for me. This is for the Ambutieno. This is for Agenda.
Yes.
This is for Raila. This is for Akumuja Kugero. This is for Udoyo. This is for this and that. The switch, the psychological switch.
Let me tell you, there's something called the charismatic. Let me call it the charismatic modeling. That people naturally believe a myth. People have myths. People look up to leaders who carry along the story of their imagination and who are a manifestation of extreme grace. I don't know, come to go together. Of extreme grace, which means uncommon forgiveness, uncommon existence. If a leader or if a human being possesses the character of charisma, which begins from likability, okay? Likability, agreeability by the people, acceptance by the people. And this comes from this person having a modest or a middle line where he represents or she represents the story of the people, where the people see themselves and their story in this individual. I'll give you an example. Many people would agree that Nelson Mandela had charisma of unmatched level. It's because if you look at Nelson Mandela, he was carrying the story of unmatched, unmeasured grace. Following what was done to him and what was done to black South Africans, naturally the expectation will be retribution. But this fellow did not go for that option. Whether they negotiated, whatever they did, this fellow did not choose violence as a response. He didn't choose to chase these guys away. Instead, when he got out, he said South Africa is for everybody.
Yeah.
At the same time, still carrying the hopes of the black man in South Africa. And the world, not just South Africa, recognized him for his charisma. That is very strong. Come home, look at Raila Odinga. He was a rich man, very rich. But he represented the story of the common man. You look at him, you look at the common man. Raila, up to his death, did not muko his Simba at home. He had a Simba Yambao. Many people today live in, I could say, earthworld houses. That's mud house, right? Raila was living in a Mbao house. It was like a one-bedroom house. It's still there in Kaunka Jaramogi. But this fellow, even his history of rising, it was a history of suffering, as much as was the son of a vice president. But there was quite much of suffering, akin to the common man, fighting for something. Then he was centering his life, dedicating it to uplifting the economic status, the freedoms of the common man. So people said, you are doing what we are afraid to do. So we are going to support you because it is what we desire, but we are afraid to do what? To do it. And then, autunyeshi madarau, you are carrying our dream with a lot of grace. And that is why when Raila died, you saw even leaders from the opposition, in this sense, that leaders from the people who never wanted him to be in power were there. His enemies were there because he's charismatic. And that is what people are looking for in the new bunch of people who are emerging. The person who has charisma, the person who represents the story of the common man, the person who looks like he's fighting for the common man, the person who sits down to listen to the common man, the person who shakes the hand of the common man, who eats with the common man, who does common activities, stands out to be charismatic. Okay? So people naturally will look to be led by somebody who is carrying themselves within this context of their dreams, their visions, but with grace. Upon the death of Raila, I can tell you, even the deepest Kikuyu who hated him felt some pain for him. Yes.
But you can make it up. Everything that you've talked about, and as far as this person is concerned, you can create it. You can't.
Charisma cannot be created.
No, I mean talking to people.
Of course, I can train you in public speaking, but that's not charisma. There's a way that when you enter a place where people are, they will sense that you're charismatic. For example, Jagero. Do you go to Vibandas?
Zachai. Sindio, yes. That's where I come from.
Do you use border borders? Of course, right now you are a bourgeoisie.
I fear them, but
you're not a commoner.
I fear them, but I use them. I just fear them. Really fear them.
When you meet people, what do you talk about?
Everything. I think I'm one of the people that talks to everybody.
Exactly. Now that is charisma. So you can only.
Do you think I talk to everybody? I talk with everybody.
Of course, I see you talking to very loudly. You've made us been chased from restaurants because of your hearty laughter. Today
we had a lot of fun with Joaquim.
Yes.
At Karakacha.
Yes. at Malo.
Yeah.
Yes.
Malo. So
yes. So when you walk into a space and you appear common, but you also are courageous to fight for their ideals, then you become charismatic.
Is that what the Nigerian author Chinua Achebe says? He's a man that comes with his presence.
Exactly. So that presence is what we're talking about. How you, aubagui. And this is how charisma is built. My story, your story, our story, the future. Okay? Can I give an example? Let's go to Obama. NDC speech 204.
204, 206?
204. His very first speech before 206. Remember, the first speech was not when he was declaring his presidential intention. No?
What was he talking about? Oh, he was asked to speak.
Yes.
In an NDC.
In the Democratic Congress or whatever. Yes.
You
Convention.
You convention.
Yes, the convention, Democratic Convention.
Yeah, he was a senator.
He was a senator.
And he was asked to speak.
Yes.
To represent the blacks. So what was he doing?
No, he was asked to speak. They always ask senators to speak, or they ask people to speak. And when you are nominated to speak, that is, Obama was not even, of course, Obama from a young age wanted to be a president. It is written everywhere, we know now, that when he met Michelle, he told Michelle he'll be a president. So he already knew that he would be.
He was bluffing.
It was not bluffing.
He was wooing that woman.
No, you are who you think you are. That is true.
Okay.
Yes, like you believe you will be the MP for Nyakach. If you fund the imagination very well, you'll actually become the MP for Nyakach.
Because be the MP for Nyakach. People of Nyakach, watch out. Watch out.
So if you look at the Obama story, when he stood to speak, he was talking about his story, this child with a funny name, who did not have a chance.
Yeah.
Who it was unlikely to be standing on the stage, to be speaking to Americans in America.
Yeah.
Then he talks about a common person living in Louisiana. He's talking about an old man who fought in some world war somewhere.
It's very nice.
He's talking about very many different...
July 27th, 2004.
Yes.
Can I read for you the opening statement?
Yes.
On behalf of the great state of Illinois, crossroads of nation, land of Lincoln, let me express my deep gratitude for the privilege of addressing this convention. Tonight is a particular honor for me because, let's face it, my presence on this stage is pretty unlikely. I remember those words very well.
Yes.
My father was a foreign student, born and raised in a small village in Kenya. He grew up herding goats, went to school in tin roof shack. His father, my grandfather, was a cook, a domestic servant.
Yes.
But my grandfather had a larger dreams for his son. Through hard work and perseverance, my father got a scholarship to study in a magical place, America.
Yes. So the charismatic authority,
the place where Obama is destroying one after the Trump.
So
yellow hand syndrome.
Yes. You're going to get a visa, bro. Be careful.
Who cares about America?
So
you know, can I tell you about something?
Please.
I have gone to America maybe 4 times, but I have never connected with America.
Why?
I've never connected with America the way I've connected with Europe. I think that the culture is not very authentic. It's not very natural. The people there are not very good, especially mostly when I go to America. I don't meet a lot of Kenyans. Kenyans are a bit, I'm busy. They are busy all the time. The other day I saw somebody sleeping with his boots on because he only has 2 hours to wake up.
Sleeping in his boots, not with his boots.
Yes, he was having them on, so he just slept, and the alarm rang.
Okay.
He was doing a joke, but so every time I've gone to America, I've not even met Kenyans. I've not enjoyed. The guy that I met that I really enjoyed staying with was a guy that was a student, obviously. So for obvious reasons, he had the time to accommodate me. We chatted together. We drove around and so on and so forth. But a typical American, Kenyan American, has no time to speak with you. Has no time for coffee. Has no time for anything.
So do you know why that is the way it is? Now, in understanding the body politics,
yes,
I want to understand this, that in a capitalist state, the business owner is not limited to profit. And in that non-limiting to profit, which means they get rich at anyone's expense and at anything's expense. That is why the military-industrial complex of America is fleecing, literally, America of too much money, creating weapons that they'll never use. For example, nuclear weapons. The world is at a stalemate. You cannot use nuclear weapons because it's mutually assured destruction. But they are continuing to build stockpiles. Today, Trump has just admitted something very interesting, that they have weapons that nobody knows about. Like the one they used in Venezuela when they went to pick there. Because they say that this weapon, when they got in, the soldiers from Cuba just started bleeding from their noses and every opening. And they passed out. They died, all of them. And no shot was fired in terms of killing them with bullets. No, it was some funny weapon, probably chemical weapon. These stockpiles are not helping. And so, the classified departments are extorting extreme amounts of money from the market and they're controlling the politics. And America is majorly controlled by two wings. The industrial military complex, and two, it's controlled by the big pharma. Because it's drug dealing, basically.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, once you understand that in America, in that capitalist setting, when somebody has the leverage to pay you the smallest he wills to, because there's no, what we call, initially, there wasn't something called basic or minimum wage. They introduced it, but it was still very low. In socialist states, there's minimum wage that you pay somebody. So America, even that minimum wage cannot sustain you. They say it is $50 per hour. Okay? It can't sustain you. That's why you find them having no time. They have to work 4 jobs to sustain themselves. That's why you never meet them. And when they come from work, they're too tired. They're sleeping. You cannot even sustain a marriage properly. Because you're waking up, you're paying tax. You're working to pay bills. I've talked to several Americans, or several blacks who live in America, Kenyans. If you look carefully, and I don't say this to mean disrespect or to laugh at people who live in America.
Yeah.
It is what they have shared with me. That most of them, the biggest success they have is coming home to build a home. After toiling for ages.
I mean, Americans used to be having cash.
Yes.
But these days, I take it to your $12, I take it to your $20. Americans find it very difficult to separate themselves with their $20.
It becomes difficult.
Yeah.
Because if the economy is worsening and the life is high, it becomes. Let me tell you, Americans today are moving to Kenya, especially the blacks. So many of them are living here in Lavington and Kileleshwa and Kilimani. Why?
As we as the Kenyan right, we don't like that.
What is your inspiring force? Why don't you like it? The Kenyan right.
Taking our women.
Of course, the competition is going to be stiff.
Yeah, you know.
They're speaking nice English.
Somebody realizes that they can actually pay a house worth $500 in Lavington.
Exactly.
And that is unbelievable.
In America, for you to have a 3-bedroom apartment plus an SQ, you'll be checking out almost $3,000 per month. That is like 400,000 Kenya shillings in America.
There's someone who told me that, can you imagine being paid at American rates and living in Kenya in Lavington?
Do you know, can I tell you something interesting?
Yeah.
The online space, the internet, has given these guys leverage. They are in Kenya, they're living in Kenya, but they're still working for American companies.
Yeah.
Because they're American citizens.
Yeah.
They're still earning their $4,000, $5,000 per month. But they're paying a rent of $500.
And it's a single person.
And it's a single person. Or it's a family.
Yeah, but yeah.
Boris Yeltsin of Boris Realty will tell you, most of his clients today are actually ex-Americans.
Ex-Americans?
We call them ex-Americans, those who have left America for Kenya. But they're still working for American companies. They're just doing their work online. They don't have to be there physically. And that online work is giving them that leverage. So it's cheaper to live where? In Kenya. In America, they can't live easily because America, the market there is what? Is extremely capitalist. In Kenya, we have a strong hybrid of capitalism and socialism. Okay? Where we call social democracy, where the government should be taking care of particular things, which at least it is trying, like now it's saying, Sha. Mzuri, sindio? Sha. Although there's challenges, but we are taking care of everybody basically.
Today he said that there are hospitals that are going to be giving free health care from A to Z, top bottom.
That's a social democracy kind of approach, of socialism. Where some basic, even America has it anyway, some basic services are provided by the government. Hospital, security, etc. Now, let me tell you the other concept of politics. It is called the fear of war. So the fear of war makes us submit to politicians. The fear of constant war, not just war, constant war. If you find a country that is fighting for so long, you find they will easily submit to a politician who will assure them of security. That is why when a politician stands, like the president, what does he say?
Remind me.
He says, he's the commander-in-chief of the armed forces or of the defense forces of the country. Why? He assures the people of security that is going to prevent war and loss of property. So people submit to politicians or to politics to avoid the perpetual state of war. Because without a politician who assures them of security, there's going to be war. Let me give an example. Sorry to give the example, but let me give it. The Somali state collapsed in the early 90s.
Yeah.
When it collapsed, ministers left, the government fell, and then we had people coming all over. Like, for example, the Al-Shabaab or the pirates. Do you know why the pirates even started to become? Because goods were passing by Somali, but they're not being taxed. And so this guy said, to maintain our infantry on land, we must charge you something small. If we can't charge you something small, then we'll impound your ship. And then they were branded by the West as pirates.
Yeah.
In reality, they're not pirates.
Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yes, they were branded as such. So, and even if you look at which other, Haiti, when the government collapsed,
Yes.
what happened? Vigilantes emerged. They're having 21 groups of criminal, whatever, headed by barbecue in Haiti. That's why we always say stability of the nation is important. And that's why I always tell you, I support the president because I support stability of the nation, not because he's a good man. I'm submitting to him because I need to avoid the perpetual state of war. Today, if Gen Z succeeded on June 24th or June 25th, thereabout, by invading State House, the state will have collapsed. And if the military leaves as well, what happens? You cannot move 20 meters without finding a roadblock. 20 meters, because youths will be all over trying to take over what? Take over power. So in finishing, politics and human beings submit to politicians to avoid the perpetual state of war because then that will assure them of early death. Human beings are trying to live around for as long as they can. So they'll always donate that power to politicians who sometimes are leaders, sometimes are not, for them to buy in or buy out their safety.
Can you profile, as we finish, can you profile for me, Ruto, can you profile for me, Moi, can you profile for me somebody like maybe Gachagua?
All right. So now, before I start profiling them, there's a concept that I think I will do injustice if I don't explain. Right now, you're seeing the world move in particular new wings, new formations, etc. You're wondering what the hell is going on. New world order breaks. Yeah.
Trump is heckling Europe.
Yeah, Trump is heckling Europe. In Davos today, he's being heckled.
He was heckled today.
All in the streets, they're heckling him. They don't want him there. They're telling him, you're not welcome here.
Yeah.
And that is Europe fighting, Europeans basically fighting.
I did not know to the extent of how Europe is weak militarily.
Oh, it is.
They obviously don't have anything.
The only country that is very strong in Europe is Finland, militarily. Because
of the warships they're making.
Oh, Finland has the best military power in Europe. They overspend in the military.
Yeah, because of the ships that they're making. They're making like America just bought ice crashers.
Of course. Those guys are huge. And the Finnish...
And they make the best yachts.
They make the best yachts as well, yeah? These guys have invested their lives in protecting themselves because, you know, they share 1,000-kilometer border with Russia.
1,000?
Yes, and remember, Finland was initially part of the Russian Empire. And when the USSR collapsed in 1991, 1992, Finland went fully on its way and invested too much in its violent wing, which is the military.
What led to the collapse of the USSR?
Well, there were so many issues. There was, of course, the collapse of the oligarchy back then. There was, of course, the fall of communism in the world. Communism actually fell. The breaking of the Berlin Wall, which signified communism is a fuck up, you know. We shut this thing up. Then with that fall of the Berlin Wall signified the end of communism. And so USSR disintegrated. A weak China, okay? So there's nobody to fight the geopolitics. And so capitalism took over and they introduced something called democracy. You realize today Russia doesn't have democracy. It has something called pseudo-democracy. It's like Uganda. Uganda doesn't have democracy. That's pseudo-democracy.
I think Uganda has democracy at the Only the presidential level does not have that democracy.
That's what I'm saying. Democracy is absolute. It's not relative. Power is absolute, it's not relative. So the way of acquiring it must also be absolute. You can't say that kwa hizi zingine kuna democracy hapo juu. Who tells you that if the president can rig, he can also rig his MPs because he needs MPs in parliament
to pass those things that you don't like.
Exactly. Remember, in the same country is where people were really chapwad the other day.
Yeah, and
when they wanted to pass.
There is a 100-year-old who has been elected as an MP.
Yeah, he's 86. I know him. That man who is he was a former military chief or something. Yeah. So I was telling you, with the emergence of the new world order, you'll understand something as well in politics, that there is the emergence of there's the establishment of geopolitics that is now in the process of shifting, which is always a constant war within the period of our lifetime and also beyond. Right now, initially we had something called multilateralism, where we appreciate the independence of countries and we can relate as individual countries. That's why we have the Vienna, whatever, for the foreign affairs diplomatic accord, where each country has a representative in another country that they recognize as a sovereign state. Okay? To help control and establish stability and also pursue the interests of that country in this country. Diplomats majorly collect intelligence. They gather intelligence and also inform the presidents or their monarchs where they come from on how to manage these other countries. So we were initially existing in multilateralism where we were having a common order, where we had one prefect. And that prefect was who? The United States of America. In the ancient ages, it was one time the Roman Empire, Rome, the capital of the world. Later on, it came to Constantinople, which was Turkey. Sometimes there was this fellow who came from this small European country. It's called what? I'm forgetting. Alexander the Great. What's the name of his country? Do you know it? Romania. I think it's come from Romania.
But Romania is not
No,
small.
not Romania. No, Macedonia.
Macedonia.
Macedonia. He came from Macedonia. And he occupied and even established his capital in Egypt. Okay? So now, there was that multilateralism that was there, but now we are moving into multipolarity. Multipolarity is where we're not having a specific world order. It's where we're having very many people, very many countries trying to have very many polars of the world. We're having the BRICS pulling this side, and I can divide. I
think the BRICS is useless.
I think it is sending a message which we can analyze another day. But you can realize that the world is divided into three today. We are having the global south. We are having the global west. And we're having
the global south
east.
is China, Russia, Brazil, South Africa.
No.
Are you talking about the geography?
I'm talking about, well, we could call it geography, but we could also call it the identification or the alienation, okay? Like the global south is where we are. You can just divide the world into that. Global, no.
Quadrants.
Into quadrants, okay? And you identify. So within that move, identify that there are people who are now shifting the conversation, where they're saying, America, you've been the prefect for a long time. And your primacy is based on petrodollar. Because every transaction beyond a country is done through petrodollar, like the dollar, the American dollar. And you must, for you to purchase via petrodollar, you must have what? The SWIFT. And the Americans are the owners of the SWIFT. They're the ones who authorize international transactions. But realize just the other day, and now observe clearly, whenever you shift the conversation on the petrodollar, America will come for you. Apple, they're merciless. In fact, America is based on the dollar.
Yeah, they've tried China, failed. They've tried Brazil, failed. They have tried India, failed.
Just a minute.
They're only scaring South Africa.
Just a minute, let me share with you. When this fellow in Libya, Gaddafi, tried to introduce the African dinar, do you remember it? It's an African currency that was going to unify Africa. And sometimes he also tried the Arabs, to unify Arabs, so that they can operate on one currency that will rival the dollar, or that will debase the dollar. Pap, done.
Obama killed him.
Not Obama, the CIA.
It was Obama.
The CIA.
It was Obama.
When a Venezuela guy tried to sell oil by passing the dollar system out, And anybody who has ever tried that before, there will be a regime change. You'll be introduced as democracy. If you look at this country called Iran, right now, where now there's this fellow called Plaza or somebody. Is a son of the former Shah of Iran, who was deposed, but who was put there by Americans, who became a dictator. Americans can actually appoint a dictator to lead a country, and they side with him, so long as their interests are covered.
Are covered, yeah.
But now the world is rising because of something called nuclear power, where countries such as India, countries such as the one I'm talking about, Russia, China, they have nuclear weapons. Do you think America can fly into China and pick that fellow?
No, I also think that...
Or even Russia.
I also think that America can only do that for bush countries. I think Venezuela is a bush country.
Exactly. So when they realize you're a bush country and you don't have the nuclear power, then they'll come for you. These countries that have nuclear power, they cannot mess around with them. And that's why they had to tell Iran or disable Iran from having nuclear power. Because if Iran had nuclear power and Khamenei is the head of Iran, if Trump tried something there, they will simply just fire, because you saw what they did with Israel. Iran and Israel did some very interesting dance within minutes. And we knew that, hey, kumbe Israel inaweza shtuliwa. Okay? Now, that said, let me tell you something, Jagero. If you look at politics in its entirety, something that you will appreciate about politics is that every day as you wake up, politics affects the price of everything that you do. Your freedom, the food you eat, and every other little thing that you engage in. Because it is politics that has the establishment that will determine the laws, and that's why we go to parliament to control the law, to change the law, to amend the law, if you want to call it like that, to introduce laws, that we have better order that will affect the market. Because at the base of politics today in the new world is the market. Initially it was just power, feudalism, etc. But now it's market control.
Thank you very much. I think we will profile Ruto and the rest of them in another episode. So people of the internet, thank you very much. Obunga, you're ready with the ad? People of the internet, thank you very much for listening in. Please consider subscribing to, we have heard about 1,500 people subscribing to Political Headache in the last 1 week, which is amazing. If you have subscribed, thank you very, very much. And if you have not hit on that notification bell so that when we have a live like this, you will be notified, please do so. Follow us on social media. We are on TikTok, we are on Facebook, we are on Instagram, we are everywhere. So thank you very much and good night. All right, people of the internet, I hope that you're enjoying this episode very much. And I just had a break to tell you about my new book. You know, everybody says that there is no job, and that is true. Also, that was me 10 years ago. The problem is that everybody is trying to get a job in their town, in their city, in their marketplace. They ask friends for jobs, mothers call uncles, uncles call brothers, but there are no jobs. Let me tell you what no one is telling you. Jobs migrated online. What I actually mean is there are many, many jobs around the world and there is no one to do them except you. I work for Americans myself. I work for Europeans. I work for the Chinese. I work for the Australians. I work for the Canadians. And so, because I have done so much for myself, I said to myself, you know what? I should compile what I've been doing for the last 15 years. So in 2024, I wrote a digital book called Goldmine 18 Hustles for Africans. And then in 2025, AI came. People say AI is taking away our jobs. And for me, I'm going to say false. There are actually AI jobs. Jobs are not being taken by AI, but there are new jobs online that are there because of AI. Now, mimi ni nani? I created more jobs. And for now, in my book, in my new book, we have 25 online and offline jobs that you can leverage on if you do not have a job. So in this powerful volume 2, I share 25 new actionable online hustles specifically researched and tailored for Africans. My new book provides clear step-by-step guidance drawing from my extensive experience and research, including the mistakes I've made and lessons I've learned over the 15 years that I have worked online. So, what can you do online? You can become an executive assistant for busy folks in Europe, America, Canada, and get paid for tasks like watching videos and taking online surveys. Okay? You can build a lot of things. Build a business as a virtual assistant, start an e-commerce shop without capital, be an affiliate marketer, or you can also become actually an English tutor and tens of AI jobs. If you have a job, that is fine. But I also know that you can buy this book for that brother, for that sister, for that mother, for that cousin, for that husband who is watching Netflix all day at home. Buy it for your friend who is always asking for cash. You know that friend. Now, all the information is on the description below. You can also inbox me, you can WhatsApp me, or go to my website, which is oduorjegero.co.ke. And now, back to programming.